not going to help me by giving me what I desperately need. More funds, more stations. Then I'm going to have to go out there and fight the crime with my bare hands. It's on your head if anything happens today. Come on! I need a little help here.
If there's one thing I enjoy about as much as sim games, it's full motion video, so it must be a treat when the two are combined. And yeah, by 1992, Maxis's SimCity had sold over 1 million units and become one of the most successful and award-winning computer games in history. And this came with huge expectations for future sim games and high demand for a new version of SimCity in particular. And while SimCity 2000 was well in progress by that point, Maxis also toyed around with producing specialized versions of the original SimCity for classrooms and corporations, not to mention dozens of ports, add-ons, and re-releases. However, a few years into the 1990s, the multimedia hype train was rapidly leaving the station with much attention on CD-ROMs and their ability to store digital video. And that brings us to today's oddity, SimCity Enhanced CD-ROM, released in 1994 for MS-DOS and 1995 for Macintosh. Not by Maxis, but by Interplay. The company founded by Brian Fargo, a studio known for games like Wasteland, The Bard's Tale, and Battle Chess, among so much more. Now, as to why this deal happened, I don't precisely know, but I can guess. In 1993, Maxis was largely dedicated to finishing up SimCity 2000, all the while SimCity remained their big cash cow, and while it was still selling decently, it made sense to inject some new life into it. And what better injection than a CD-ROM edition? The early 90s equivalent of today's remasters and current-gen re-releases, I guess, adding cutting-edge features to an old favorite and often selling it for full price. And Interplay Productions was at the forefront of this practice in the 90s, with games like Battle Chess and Star Trek 25th Anniversary both getting enhanced CD-ROM editions that proved quite successful. They had the multimedia experience and video production resources necessary, and it makes sense Maxis would cooperate with a studio like them for SimCity Enhanced. What resulted came in this lovely orange gold-brown box, at least in 1994. There was also this white cost-cut release in 1997 with a far flimsier box and less inside, while the European release received green packaging, at one point at least. And yeah, despite 1993 plastered on the box and often listed as its release date online, April 1994 is the earliest release that I have, judging by file dates on the disc. Either way, this was a completely separate and distinct release from all the previous SimCities, promising a fresh new experience. It looks like you can even see your cities in 3D, judging from this screenshot. The games simply don't get any better than this. A powerful quote, one lifted from a Compute magazine review for Maxis's SimCity for Windows from late 1992, not this 1994 FMV version, a tad misleading, especially since by the time critics got around to reviewing SimCity Enhanced, they weren't all that convinced. It was both praised and criticized for its gameplay, which was still just as fun as the 1989 game, but also felt outdated compared to the new SimCity 2000. Some also didn't like it had video sequences that were distracting at best and off-putting at worst, and having a relatively high price at $60. Not only was it effectively a 5-year-old game by then, but it also didn't include the terrain editor or any graphics packs like previous versions, or even a Windows PC version, only MS-DOS on launch. That said, the game still won Best Simulation/Strategy Award at TBS's Cybermania The Ultimate Gamer Awards in 1994, the first televised video game awards show. Oh my goodness, this is a heck of a relic. Hosted by Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Leslie Nielsen, and the Simulation Award was read off of an Apple Newton PDA by Carol Ann Plante, who played Sarah from Harry and the Hendersons, and Renee Auberjonois, Odo from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, with William Shatner describing each nominee. The 90s were surreal.
SimCity Enhanced CD-ROM. The city is in turmoil. As mayor, you have to walk a tightrope to keep everyone happy, at least the voters.
The winner for Best Simulation Strategy Game is
SimCity Enhanced CD-ROM.
Anyway, underneath SimCity Enhanced's outer sleeve is some lovely Interplay packaging, a box that opens up to reveal enhanced box contents inside the box. First being an Interplay product registration card, along with a catalog of their latest computer game offerings. Even today, it's kinda weird seeing all Interplay stuff inside a SimCity box. Then there's this fold-out reference card with keyboard shortcuts and a couple of charts going over city dynamics and zones, as well as the game itself on CD-ROM, with a long but generic write-up by Brian Fargo on the back, extolling the virtues of the company in the way a president of a company would. And lastly, there's the Enhanced Instruction Manual, a 70-page black and white affair that's a little shrunken down in physical size and reformatted compared to the original, but chock full of the same useful info, with cutouts for the 6 main FMV actors to interject here and there, along with a whole section detailing their names, ages, and credentials as they pertain to each of their positions as city officials. And also an intro from Interplay producer Michael Conti stating how their goal with this release was to apply their Hollywood know-how to bring the game to life, making the player's involvement quote-unquote more reality-based. Unfortunately, the documentation's reality is that of inaccuracy. Like in the first disasters menu section, it mentions a nuke meltdown as a new selectable disaster, but later on, it specifically says this is not an option in the disasters menu, and that's true in-game. Or how it mentions that you can press Ctrl-T to bring up the terrain window, but there's no such thing in this version of the game since it doesn't include the terrain editor. It also says you can change graphics tile sets using those separately sold packs, but there's no such option in the game. And then, at the very end, boy did this send me deeply down a rabbit hole, or ant hole. This ad for SimAnt Enhanced CD-ROM. What the heck? That was a thing? Well, it was gonna be. As shown in the earlier product catalog, it would have had over 20 minutes of FMV, new sound effects, graphics, and music, and a talking virtual host named SimAntha built using Vactor technology, a 3D actor system by Sim Graphics Engineering. Which, despite the name, Sim Graphics was unrelated to Maxis. They were the ones responsible for the famous Mario in Real-Time 1991 demo, with one of the first public appearances of Charles Martinet playing Mario, which of course inspired the floating head title screen in Super Mario 64. And sure enough, looking up magazine archives, there were several that mentioned SimAnt Enhanced, and that it should launch alongside SimCity Enhanced, although it definitely did not. Contrary to info online, SimAnt Enhanced never released. To my knowledge, this info is entirely incorrect based on my own physical copies. I have all the Maxis collections and CD versions of SimAnt, and none of them are enhanced. There is one company, Computer Express, that advertised having copies for sale in 1994, but they could have just been getting ahead of themselves based on the release date promised by Interplay. Yeah, anyway, if anybody knows if SimAnt Enhanced ever actually came out or if there's a copy floating around, let me know. But I'm done making mountains out of an anthill. Let's get SimCity Enhanced installed on MS-DOS and see what all's changed. And that begins with the setup program, which is now entirely different due to its steeper system requirements and multimedia components. Gone are all the lower res graphics modes, now it's all SVGA all the time, plus a Sound Blaster Pro Audio Spectrum or compatible for sound effects. There is no music. Then select some video playback options and then enjoy the full motion video fruits that result. Well, dang, that's kind of underwhelming. The back of the box screenshot that looked like a 3D view of a city was simply a frame from the intro video. Oh well, from here it's your standard SimCity selection of starting up or loading a saved city or choosing from one of the classic scenarios. And going with those is a great way to get an immediate idea of what SimCity Enhanced is like.
Funzilla is coming. A large reptilian monster has been spotted heading for Tokyo Bay. It seems to be attracted to the heavy levels of industrial pollution. Try to control the fires, then rebuild. You have 5 years.
And in other news today, SimCity had its Founders Day parade. Wait, this just in. Hold on. Is this some kind of joke? Excuse me, folks, but I am told that Funzilla is cutting a path of destruction through SimCity, devastating the transportation system. Apparently, this 20-story lizard is picking up cars and buses and throwing them hundreds of yards as he moves closer to the SimCity Action Studios, which means that this is Carol Davenport signing off and getting the hell out of here.
A large lizard monster has been spotted in the water. It seems to be attracted to areas of high pollution.
Yeah, not only do you have voiceovers for pop-up text boxes, but disasters, city advisors, and notable city events are often accompanied by a number of different video sequences, each overflowing with the goopiest, smelliest cheese from the 90s.
How do you expect to keep power to the residential, commercial, and industrial areas if I don't have enough power plants to cover a typical city grid? Blinking lights are pretty at the holidays, but not during the normal work week. Get it?
Oh boy, this is my life. A 99-cent chili dog because I'm broke, a traffic jam I tried to warn you about. Listen, you stay in City Hall and leave the transportation grid to me. Just keep adding more funding and keep adding more roads and rails to the transportation grid. Thank you.
But take it from a veteran crime fighter. They're out there, lurking in the dark, in every corner, in every crack. We gotta be ready. We gotta be quick.
It doesn't stop there either, with almost every single clickable menu option, stat screen, and status update narrated with what it calls audio help, unless you disable that feature. And you'll probably want to, considering they constantly overlap into a cacophony of nonsense.
The growth of your
Police station.
Coal plants are less expensive than nuclear.
To build an
All
If you're building a city and you want industrial, stadiums are good for encouraging road, $10.
I wish you could pick and choose which kinds of narration it gives you instead of a blanket disable everything option, because it's actually nice to have your advisors letting you know when certain things are out of whack. Like if there's too much crime, it'll say place more police stations and that citizens demand more buildings and things like that. But nope, it's all or nothing. And then all the full motion video sequences can interrupt anything at any time, including those audio help voiceovers mid-sentence.
Check your cash flow in the budget window. If it's positive.
Man, we're getting eaten alive out here. Recruit regular citizens. Call in the militia. I don't care. This is war, and we're losing the battle. Just get me more funds, and I'll turn this city around.
then we should have no problems increasing our funding.
And the game also goes out of its way to tell you about the new Peek feature, which pops up as a menu option from time to time to give you a peek into the lives of your Sims. And well, it's a thing.
Jenny, hey, sleep. Yeah. Oh my god, you wouldn't believe what happened. I was at the Galleria and all the power went out. It was so freaky.
Hey, get out of here.
It's about time that you got a job because I'm sick of being the only one that works in this family.
Yeah, this is the opposite of an enhancement. I mean, yeah, it's kind of charming at first in a novel and silly sort of way. I love bad B-movie style acting, and this is chock full of it. And non-sequitur humor theoretically has a place in SimCity. Like, from the beginning, these games have always had goofy comedic messages and Easter eggs here and there.
Java.
But this takes it from being background flavoring to foreground intrusions, and it gets old within minutes. Granted, those Peek videos are optional and they rarely tie into anything. It's the event-triggered advisor videos that are the real star of the show here, and the main actors all do a great job hamming it up in an appropriately absurd way, especially the news anchor. But overall, the FMV fatigue set in quickly for me, particularly when they start looping around and playing the same things over and over, which didn't take long.
I'm as mad as bog fire ants running a race. Everybody's got to pick their own horse, and you couldn't win a race if you ran unopposed. Now you get us better funding and more stations pronto, because if you don't think I'm leaving, you can just count the days I'm gone. Yeah!
That said, there is one new feature, one that I really like, and that's the Go-To icon, which drops down to provide shortcuts to certain ongoing events and points of interest in your city, like high traffic, disasters, mass transit, and so on. It expands on the Auto Go-To feature and gives you control over which exact thing you'd like to see. And, that's it. Otherwise, this is arguably a downgrade in almost every way. Even the graphics. I really don't like the way it changes the look of all the buildings. They largely have a more washed out, muted color palette with redesigned artwork that lacks the classic appeal of the vibrant 16-color graphics set of the original. They are higher resolution, and certain things like this stadium and power plants do look better, I think, but overall I wish it had a more saturated, lively look. These cities feel depressing somehow. Yeah, I do like the bluish menus, though. It reminds me of a system running IRIX or something. And the scroll bars with much smoother scrolling than the original are a definite improvement over the classic DOS game. So, okay, I guess that makes two new features I like. The Go-To shortcuts and the user interface. Otherwise, man, what an irritating city simulation. At least if you're actually looking to simulate a city. If you just want to fart around and indulge in some cartoonishly dumb FMV and don't give a darn about actually playing with intent, then hey, here you go. There are worse ways to waste your time.
Thank you, Sheila. And you're right, those clam donuts do look delicious. That was Sheila Blakely with today's cooking report. Wait, this just in. SimCity Secretary of Transportation Walter B. Good has just issued a statement saying that a tornado has ripped through the SimCity, destroying all transportation. In fact, it is now being reported that Secretary Good was so distressed with the damage caused by the tornado that he has spent most of the day standing in his office, clicking his heels 3 times and repeating over and over again, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home."
And that's about it for SimCity Enhanced CD-ROM. Enhanced my dick. I mean, yeah, there's undeniable charm to many of the videos, and I genuinely appreciate them nowadays. They're a relic of a bygone era that I adore revisiting. Briefly, because while it's technically more advanced than the original SimCity, I think even as a kid, this would have been a hard lesson learned that more advanced doesn't always mean better. On that note, this really feels like it's made for kids far more so than SimCity ever did. Nothing wrong with that. Heck, I would have totally enjoyed this as an 8-year-old when this came out. For a day or two at least. After that, I'm fairly confident I would grow tired of the barrage of multimedia nonsense getting in the way of actually building the simulated city I wanted to. And I would have regretted spending $60 as a result, especially when SimCity 2000 cost $10 less and was better in every way. If you really want an enhanced and unique take on classic SimCity, play the Super Nintendo version. That game is awesome. Great graphics, great music, great new features, no FMV needed or desired. The enhanced CD-ROM though, yeah, no, I had my fill.
Have you heard of black holes? That's what this city will become if you don't build more transmission lines immediately. You need a good shot from one of your very own 10-gigawatt lines. Maybe then you'd see the light. You bloody well get it.
And hey, if you had this version of SimCity back in the day, let me know your thoughts on it. If you thought it was a little bit much like I do, or maybe you really, really love it. Either way, I'm curious, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you stick around for more things coming up on LGR. There's always more in the works. And as always, thanks for watching.